everyone, hope you're doing well. For this video, I wanted to talk about learning a tune. And I'm going to talk about this from the perspective of a relative beginner, someone who's not terribly familiar with all of the different structures and harmonic mechanisms of jazz music, such that it's something that you can just pick up on the spot. I'm going to be pretty thorough in my approach here and talk about various ways to learn the tune, get it into your ears, and then practice it. So for the first step, I want to talk about learning the melody. So the tune we're going to cover is called Solar, written by Miles Davis. It's a very popular jam session tune, and it's a 12-bar form that typically goes pretty fast. It's also a very interesting tune because it's in a minor key, and it covers a number of different key centers. So you've got C minor as one key center. It then moves to F major, E flat major, D flat major, and then back to C minor, all in very quick succession, which sounds very complicated, but it's one that once you get the melody and the harmonic structure under your fingers, it's fairly easy to play fluently because those chords connect together very logically. So the first step here is to learn the melody, and in order to learn the melody, I think it's very helpful to analyze the harmony. The harmony of this tune, as I mentioned, is quite interesting, and it starts in the key of C minor. So here's your C minor. And it stays on C minor for essentially the first couple of bars. So after that first couple of bars, it does a 2-5 to get to this F major 7. So you're going from C minor 7 for 2 or 4 bars, and then moving to F7, so to the 4 chord. Very common harmonic movement, especially in blues music. And given that this tune is a 12-bar form, it does have some nods to the blues. So you should be thinking about that as you construct your solos or your as you play this tune. But essentially what you're doing here is you're staying on this home key of C minor. Just to get that key in your ears. And then you're doing a 2-5, playing a 2-5 using this G minor 7 going to C dominant 7. So this interplay between C minor becoming C7 or C dominant 7 is a key piece of the melodic content here, both in terms of the written melody as well as your solos. And that resolves to the 4 chord or F major 7. So you can think about this as a 4 chord, which is to say that the subdominant area of the C minor key. But I think it's also pretty helpful to think about it as its own key center in its own right, because what happens is the harmony stays on this F major 7 tonality for 2 full bars. And in a 12-bar form, that's a long time, or that's a meaningful amount of time. And it's also used as a jumping off point for the rest of the tune. So this F major switches to F minor 7 to become the 2 chord in a 2-5 to a tonality a whole step below F major, which is E flat major. So in order to get from F major to E flat major, a very easy way to do that is to take this F major chord, make it an F minor 7 chord. So it's now the 2 chord in a 2-5 to E flat. So this movement, major 7 becoming a 2 chord, a whole step beneath it is very common in jazz music. It's one you should practice, and it is, there's a number of tunes that make extensive use of it, such as How High the Moon would be the first one that comes to mind for me. So F major 7, F minor 7, B flat 7, to E flat major 7. And then it does it again. The E flat major 7 becomes E flat minor 7, A flat 7, to D flat major 7. And then you need to get back to the top of the form. So get back to C minor, if you remember, that's where we started. So to get from D flat major 7 to C minor, and a good way to do that, a very smooth way to do that, is to take this D flat, move it up a half step to D minor 7 flat 5. Here's D flat major 7. D minor 7 flat 5 is the 2 chord in C minor. So D minor 7 flat 5 to G7 gets you back to this C minor 7 and the top of the form. So here's the harmony, just with the metronome, so you can hear how the chords connect in real time. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. C minor. F major. 2, 2, 3, 4. Top. So that's a rough outline of the harmonic structure of this tune. Now I'm going to talk about learning the melody. And before getting into how the melody outlines the harmony, let's just play it, either from the real book or how you may have learned it off the record. And then we can get into what the melody tones are actually doing harmonically, and how to organize this in your mind so that you can memorize the melody very quickly, as well as play it anywhere on the register of your instrument. One, two, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the pretty generic version of the melody. I displaced the rhythm a little bit in the second time I played it. Typically you'll play this tune twice because it's a pretty fast tune and it's a short form, 12 bars. So a lot of times you'll play that twice to just get the melody in people's ears and give them a little bit more time with it. But the way this melody is working is it's very simple. It outlines the chord changes very explicitly. So once you understand how it's doing that, it's fairly easy to memorize. So the first little melodic gesture is just in C minor. Starts on the tonic of C minor, the note 1, or the root of the C minor 7 chord. And you're just surrounding that. You move down to the 5th of this C minor 7 chord. So what's happening here? Well, this, as you recall, this is where you're moving from C minor to F major via the 2-5-1 in F major. G minor 7 to C7. To this F major tonality. So the melody walks up to the third of the G minor 7, which is also the 7th. Oops. Of the 5 chord, or the C7 in F major. And it resolves to the third of F major. It recapitulates this little melodic gesture that outlines the chord tone, this time the major third in F major. And then you walk up to the minor third of F minor 7, which itself is a 2 chord. Which is also the 7th of the dominant chord in E flat major, which is the next key center this explores, albeit briefly. Resolving to the third. Over E flat. Going from the third, walking down to scale degree 6. 3, 2, 1, 7, 6. Mi, re, do, ti, la. Da, 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 da. Sounds nice. And then you're starting again from the minor third of this E flat minor 7, which is the 2, 5, go into D flat major. So you're going. Which is pretty explicitly walks down from the third of the 2 chord to the third of the 5 chord. And then just lands on this F, which is the third of D flat major. And then a lot of times players will play something to get back to the C minor at the top of the form. So if you're in D flat, landing on this F, this third, remember you did this, is actually convenient because this F is also the third of D minor 7 flat 5, which is the 2 chord in a minor 2-5 back to C minor, or the top of the tune. You can do something in harmonic minor using this B natural, which is the third of the 5 chord of C minor. And then repeats again. So to review, we're in C minor. We walk up to the third of G minor 7 to get to F major. We're just outlining a chord tone of F major, third. Walk up to the minor third of F major, of F minor 7, which is the 2 chord in a 2-5 to E flat. And you start on the third of E flat, just walking down to scale degree 6. Mi, re, do, ti, la. Da, 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 da. Then you go to this G flat, which is the minor third in the 2-5 to the next key center, D flat. And then something to get you back to C minor. So if you think about the melody in those terms, it's fairly easy to memorize if you know that you're starting in C minor, 2-5 to F, 2-5 to E flat, 2-5 to D flat, 2-5 to C minor. So now that you've learned the melody, you're going to want to learn to play solos over the harmonic form of this tune. One thing that I think a lot of beginners run into, especially when learning new tunes, is they tend to overplay. And the reason that I think it's tempting to do that is because you stand a better chance of finding good notes, and you stand a better chance of having a shot at outlining the harmony. But what you do is you lose your listener, because it doesn't really sound like music. Music needs space, music needs clear thought and clear direction, and that's a recipe for not being able to achieve that if you're just playing a bunch of random scales. So I think the one way to attack that is to deliberately practice leaving space and knowing where you are going at any given time. I think another thing you can do is to limit yourself to a very small section of your instrument. And one way to do that on the fretboard is to just pick a very confined set of frets. So I was going to do some examples between the 7th fret and this 12th fret, and just try to stay in this general area of the fretboard. And hopefully that limits the amount of information that I have to synthesize and allows me to be clearer in the ideas that I'm bringing to the table when I solo, and make it easier for a listener to follow along. Now, before I do that, I want to make sure that I have all of the various key centers under my fingers in this area of the fretboard. So you should take some time to make sure that you can play a C minor. Learn the arpeggios in this general range, right? Then you want F major under your fingers. E flat. D flat. And then back to C minor. Without really moving your hand too much. So figure those out, and then I would not only confine myself to these 6 strings in this area. I'd probably just say maybe just these 3 strings, or try to do my best to stay on them. I think being really, really strict is counterproductive, because that creates its own set of challenges when you want to access a note but you can't. I think that's a great exercise to do, but for the purposes of just learning a tune and trying to make things easy, I don't think you should try to make them harder by overly restricting yourself, but just try to get comfortable in a very, very small area of the board, and that will, and make sure that you're playing clear ideas. Practice that first. So here's an example of what I mean by practicing playing pretty sparsely, staying in a very small area of the fretboard, and trying to play clear ideas. So I'll probably start with the melody to orient you, and then start to play some very basic soloing ideas, trying to again stay in the middle strings in this 7 to 12 fret range. So let's see how this goes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. E flat, D flat, back to C, C minor, F, 2-5 to E flat, D flat, C. That's harmonic minor. Triad, triad, more triads, triad, 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 C minor. Had a flat 9 in there. Trying to carry the flat 9 through. Flat 13. Resolved up. Flat 13 up. Melody. So that kind of thing. I think there were some good points in there, but also some challenging points. I was trying to explain a lot of what I was doing, but hopefully that's helpful. To give you some insight into the thought process, I tried to stay in this general range. There were some excursions outside of it, but not a lot. So that's very, very simple ideas, a lot of triads in there, a lot of just trying to use the same idea over various of the harmonic areas within that tune and the various key centers. Hopefully that's helpful. I'm happy to answer any questions, but let's look at some other ways to practice this tune. Another good way to practice tunes is to force yourself to leave space. Right? Again, I think it's a temptation to try to fill everything up. And if you force yourself to leave space in various parts of the tune, then you start to get in the habit of doing that when you're just soloing in real life. So I think one thing I'll try to demonstrate here is over this tune, you've got 12 bars. I'm going to play 2 bars solo and then 2 bars of nothing, 2 bars of solo, 2 bars of nothing, and just alternate that through. So you'll end up with, over the 12 bar form, basically 6 bars with no content in them. I think I'm doing this right. And then 6 bars with soloing. And it's a good way to just force yourself very artificially to leave space. And also it really, really locks you in on the form because you have to be thinking about where you are in the form without the aid of getting to just play notes throughout the entire thing. It can be a crutch to move your fingers around and use that as a way to figure out where you are in the form. And when you leave space, you are forced to really get the form and the harmony really ingrained within your ears. So let's give this a shot. One, two, 1, 2, 3, 4. Space. 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 So you get the idea. Two bars of playing, 2 bars of nothing. And then I reversed it. And what's interesting is when you reverse it in this particular tune, it's actually probably more interesting because you get all of the 5 ofs when you play in that, you know, with on those parts of the form. So on the top of the form, right, you're just playing on this pretty static C minor tonality. So if you start the form with playing, you're going to be playing that, and then the interesting part where you have the 2-5 to the F major chord, you're not going to be playing over that. But when you reverse it and you play space over the static point, and you play a solo over the part where it's the 5 of, and I think that carries through the rest of the tune, that's actually more interesting. So experiment with that. You can do different values. You know, you can do 4s. 4s is interesting over a 12-bar form because it's actually a little bit, well, it's not a little bit, it actually reverses every single time you go through, right? Because you have, if you play and then not play, alternating every 4 bars, you'll have play, space, play over the first 12 bars, and then space, play, space over the second 12 bars, and that repeats itself. So it's interesting to trade 4s. I'll just try to demonstrate that, I guess. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, play. Space at the top. Starting with space. You comp during the space parts. So there were some mistakes in there as I was trying to talk through stuff, but hopefully that demonstrates the concept. That can also be if you're ever doing solo guitar without any accompaniment whatsoever. You can organize yourself that way, and instead of trying to play single lines while you're accompanying yourself, you can segment it so that you're playing single lines and then comping between those lines, and that can be a pretty compelling way to play, and I think very listenable. So, all right, well, on to the next way to practice some of this stuff. All right, the last suggestion I'll have for you is to try playing whatever tune you're learning in a different time signature. And what this does is it forces you to really focus on what happens when within the form. And it's also just really hard. So you're going to be devoting a lot of mental energy to making the tune fit in the new time signature. And when you go back to the one that you're more familiar with, that you don't have to think about, that frees up a lot of brain space to focus on playing creatively and confidently. So you can do this. This Solar is written in 4/4 and it's usually played in 4. You could try it in 3, you could try it in 5, you could try it in 7 or 6. I'm going to try it in 3 because I think that's probably the easiest relative to those other odd time signatures, and try to show you what I mean. So I'm going to set the metronome. I'm thinking about this as the click happening on the 1 of every measure. And try to fit this tune into the 3/4 and the 3/4 time signature, right? Before I play anything, I just want to think about how I would phrase the melody. So. Something like that. I may have screwed that up a little bit, but this is about the process of trying to get more confident in playing a tune. So when it is go time and you do want to present the finished product, it's that much more polished. So I hope this gives you some good ideas for learning a tune like this, as well as any other tune you might want to learn. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I'm happy to answer them. Okay, hope everybody has a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.